Royal Rebounds TV with Calvin and Barry. Just two crazy fans of the Sacramento Kings, and they sharing their opinion. So be sure that you subscribe. It's for the fans, by the fans. Whether you chilling on the couch or wilding in the stand. For laid back conversations about the Kings, subscribe here. Staying down until we come up thinking this gonna be our year. We're here drinking beer, talking about the Kings. Be sure you subscribe so you can hear that bell ring. Yeah.
What's up, Kings fans? Welcome back to Royal Rebounds, a Sacramento Kings YouTube channel for fans by fans. Happy Sunday, everyone. Unfortunately, the Kings do lose today to the New York Knicks, 112-99. A tough game to watch. The Knicks tried their hardest to lose this game. We saw Julius Randle get ejected. We saw Jalen Brunson leave the game due to an ankle injury. And then we also saw Mitchell Robinson foul out late in this game. But welcome in, everybody. Make sure you smash up that like button, hit that subscribe button. We are live after every single Kings game. And consider hitting that notification cowbell so you'll be notified every time we put out a new video. Calvin, what's up, man? How are you?
I'm good, man. It's Sunday. At least there's a bunch of good football games to watch today. Not so much on the basketball front.
It was a trash game. I mean, we all know that, right? This game lasted way too long. It just dragged on. But hey, the Kings just weren't ready for this game. They looked out of it. They did not shoot well from three-point range. They did not shoot well from the free throw line. And they just looked a step slow in this game. So we'll definitely break down the entire game and talk about that. But welcome in, everybody. Joe, I see you here. Welcome. Progressive G, Brendan, Mike, also Alfie Man, Tito, Ray, Brian. Welcome in, everybody. Hopefully you are having an awesome Sunday, much better than the Sacramento Kings, because this is honestly, Calvin, is probably one of the worst games of basketball that I've seen them play this season. But give me your first thoughts here on the game.
Well, I think it was the worst game they've played this season. When you add up everything across the board, they couldn't get anything started offensively. Not a lot of ball movement again. Obviously didn't shoot well from the field, especially from three-point and from the free throw line. I thought New York really dictated the pace and the physicality of the whole game. Rebounding has always been a big question mark for this team and a good barometer of whether or not they're going to be in games. They gave up 15 more offensive rebounds today. And then when you consider what you mentioned at the top of the show here in the intro, Julius Randle decided he didn't want to play the second half after being on pace for probably his best game of the season. Jalen Brunson gets hurt, Mitchell Robinson fouls out, and the Kings still trailed by 14 points or more for most of this game. So they just did not have it today from the beginning, and I accept full responsibility because what did I say at the end of the last show after the game against Cleveland? It's going to be really important to mentally make sure that you're ready for the rest of this road trip. They did not look mentally ready here, and they've got to rebound quickly because now you've got a back-to-back coming up before you end the final 6 game of this road trip against some tough teams. Even Detroit has played competitively against a lot of teams this year, so they're at a pivotal moment here for this road trip where they can either turn things around and salvage it, or it could come off the train tracks really, really fast.
Yeah, I honestly feel like this game is a great reality check for the Kings, right? Where they're feeling good. But, they got to remember that every single game is played for a reason. They're not penciled in as winners on any of these games. Even when you face a team like the Knicks, even when their best player in Julius Randle, who's absolutely balling in the first half, he sets a new season high for 27 points, doesn't score anything in the third quarter before he gets ejected. But even losing those guys, right, the Kings still got to fight. They're still playing against pros out there on the court. So you got to take every game seriously. And I'm not saying that they didn't take this game seriously. I'm just, from my perspective, it didn't seem like the importance was there, right? They didn't play their style of ball. They let the Knicks control the tempo of this entire game. And honestly, it was the first quarter, it was the first half in this game that really put them down. And the mountain was just too big to climb. They tried their hardest to climb out, but they just kept falling back in the hole. What up, Jeff? Good to see you here. The Kings' shooting percentage as a whole was 39.8%. Not good at all. Not good at all. Progressive G says, one word to describe this loss: atrocious. Tito says, tough game. Shots will fall next game. What's up, Key Kings? Good to see you here. Brendan, Sabonis would have had a good game if this were an average night, but I thought he was nowhere near as aggressive as he should have been. Honestly, Brendan, Sabonis is the only King that really did have a good game. I mean, you could say Keegan Murray bounced back offensively, 18 points for him, but honestly, the team just looked lost. They looked slow, and I think you nailed it on the head, Calvin, when you said that the Knicks just controlled the entire pace of this game. We've been talking about over the past couple streams, right, where this Kings team sometimes plays up to teams, sometimes they play down to teams. We like how versatile this team is, right, because they can out big teams sometimes if they really need to, but they really doubled down on the small ball and can get around a lot of these bigger teams playing really, really good small ball, passing the ball well. They haven't done that. I mean, what is this? 3 games in a row here where they have not passed the ball well. In Milwaukee, they set a season low with 19 assists. In the win over Cleveland, only 21 assists. And then tonight, 20 assists. So, this Kings team needs to find a way to get people more involved. Yes, the shooting percentage definitely affects that, right? When you're missing all your 3-point attempts, they shot 25% from 3-point range. They missed 29 threes in this game. So you add a couple more in there, and that helps your assist number for sure. But they definitely got to find a way to get people going. Let's go ahead here and dive into the box score. So, Kings lose 99-112 to the New York Knicks. As far as the Kings go, Domantas Sabonis, 20 points, 12 rebounds, and 4 assists in 39 minutes. Shot incredibly well, but only took 10 shots in this game, 70% shooting from the field. Did not attempt a 3 in this game, and he did look a little bit passive in this game. However, he was playing against, some pretty big guys on the other squad. Harrison Barnes, 15 points, 2 rebounds, 2 assists in 35 minutes. Keegan Murray, 18 points, 7 rebounds in 35 minutes, 6 of 15 from the field, 3 of 8 from 3-point range, 7 points for Davion Mitchell, starting over De'Aaron Fox in this game. Fox is still out with that bruise to his foot. Also, Alex Len was missing as well in this game. 17 points for Kevin Huerter, 2 of 9 from 3-point range. Not something you'd really expect out of him, but he did have 6 assists in this game, 5 rebounds, a bunch of tip passes. I like the effort out there for Kevin Huerter, but this is not the Kevin Huerter we've become accustomed to seeing splash threes all over the place. So I'd like to see that back sooner rather than later. 8 points for Trey Lyles off the bench, 2 points for Dellavedova, and 12 points from Malik Monk in 23 minutes, 3 of 15 from the field, 2 of 8 from 3-point range for him. And we got to see him play a little bit of point towards the end of this game, but only 1 assist for him. The starters played okay in this game, right? 4 starters are in double figures. Sabonis was the only one I thought that was really efficient in this game. But honestly, the bench pretty much dropped the ball. We had Terrence Davis return in this game. He only played 9 minutes, 0 of 3, didn't score in this game. Malik Monk didn't score much until late in this game. And then guys like Metu, 0 points. KZ only played 4 minutes, but 0 points. And then Dellavedova, 2 points in 13 minutes. As far as the New York Knicks go, Julius Randle was playing incredibly well in the first half of this game, getting everything you want and even making some pretty crazy 3-point attempts, although he did not shoot well. 3 of 11 from 3-point range, 27 points in 27 minutes before forcing himself to leave the game early because he just couldn't close his mouth. And then Mitchell Robinson, 12 points, 9 rebounds, a ton of offensive rebounds for him in this game, and 5 of 5 from the field. But fouling out in only 19 minutes of action is a little concerning. Jalen Brunson, 18 points. He does leave due to that ankle injury. Davion Mitchell does land on his ankle. Of course, it was unintentional, but still doesn't feel good for Jalen Brunson. 27 points in 44 minutes for RJ Barrett. And then 12 points for Emmanuel Quickly off the bench. Calvin, anything here that really stands out for you in the box score?
I mean, just the Kings could not get anything going offensively. I think, yes, they took a ton of 3-point shots. Did they take too many? Probably not. I mean, they're still getting to the free throw line, so they were definitely going inside. They missed a ton of free throws as well. This is a team that shoots threes. That's how they operate offensively. I definitely would have liked to have seen Sabonis be more aggressive. Again, I think in games where, especially when De'Aaron Fox is not playing at all, or if De'Aaron Fox is playing but he's just not looking like his normal self, you need to get the ball to Sabonis and look for him to be a scorer more than a facilitator. He only had, I think, 4 assists in this game, or maybe even less than that, 4 assists. But they just could not get any type of momentum going offensively. Even when they would get, a string of 2 or 3 baskets in a row, they would just be trading field goals on the other end with New York. The energy level was not there tonight. This is just one of those games that you throw away. You look at the film, obviously, and you can see definitely there are areas that you improve on, and you'll definitely file this away for when the Knicks come to Sacramento later. But it's one of those games that you just have to get out of your system and say, okay, we move on, and you have to have a short-term memory span when it comes to just not being able to perform really in any area. I mean, the three-point field goal attempts, yes, there were a ton of them. I thought they settled for bad three-point field goal attempts, especially Malik Monk. He really did not play a good game today. Started 0 of 8, took a ton of contested shots. Then when he did try to put the ball on the floor and get to the basket, I didn't think he had the angle there very, very often. He was driving into the lane when there were 3 or 4 guys in the paint and trying to put shots up. So this was just not a Kings game that we've come accustomed to from seeing this team play now for a quarter of the season.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. And like I mentioned, I think it really came down to the first quarter in this game. The Kings allowed 36 points in the first quarter. They're supposed to have the second best offense in the NBA, and they only put up 22. So they're down 14 right after the first quarter, and they're trying to claw their way back into the game, and they just simply can't do it. As far as the team stats go, here's a look for you guys here. 39.8% from the field for the Kings as opposed to 44.9% for the Knicks. Only 25.6% from 3. The Kings actually shot better than the Knicks. The Knicks shot 22.9%, but the free throw percentage was absolutely atrocious for the Kings. Only 65.7%. And they got a decent amount of free throws. I remember I talked about the importance of getting to the basket, being aggressive, picking up those fouls on some of the bigs on this team and shooting free throws. But you got to make the free throws. You have to make the free throws. The Kings got killed on the boards in this game, 55-41. And then points in the paint too, 58 points in the paint by the New York Knicks. They got anything they wanted for a good portion of this game. That is really what ruined it for the Sacramento Kings in my mind. Lydia, good to see you here. Welcome in. Mr. California Roll, good to see you. Callum, welcome. I love my life. Welcome in, everybody. All right, Nicholas, I'm just going to jump in here to a couple of the comments, Calvin. Lydia says, Holmes might have surprised going up against Randall. I saw another person here that mentioned Progressive G, that they should have played Richaun Holmes at some point. Calvin, any thoughts on that?
Yeah, I mean, it's easy to question the rotation and the substitutions when you lose a game like this, right? But I agree. I'm a little curious as to why I thought Richaun Holmes could have gotten maybe a spark going for this team, at least helped them on the glass. I also think when Julius Randle is just destroying Harrison Barnes in the first half, why not try KZ on him for a little bit, see if it at least gives some momentum going your way. But again, it's easy to say those things after losing the game, right? There's no telling whether or not in this game, when the Kings really couldn't do anything on either side of the ball, there's not really enough evidence for me to say, yeah, playing KZ Okpala and Richaun Holmes would have turned the tide for the Kings in this game, right? It's a question mark. Maybe it would have helped, but it might not have done anything either. I don't know. So, again, when it comes to rotations and substitutions, I think Mike Brown has a pretty good idea, of this team. The KZ thing is a little weird to me because he plays a lot in some games and he doesn't play at all in other games. So I'm not quite sure what's going on there with him, but this team really didn't have much from anybody tonight. So it's not like they were right there on the precipice of winning. They were right there on the precipice of making it a 10-point game for the whole game, it felt like. And you just kept thinking, all right, if they can get it to 10, maybe they got a shot. But they never did. So this game was out of their hands pretty much since the beginning or the opening tip.
Jesus, good to see you here. I said you have to stop Randall. Yeah, I mean, they stopped Randall in the second half of this game, but it didn't matter. All the damage he did in the first half was just too much. Couple storylines going into the game. Obviously, De'Aaron Fox is out, sitting again, resting the foot. This was the return of Terrence Davis. He didn't have it tonight, Calvin. I don't know if it was conditioning. I don't know if it was, the lower back affecting him in this game, but missed every shot that he took. Only played 9 minutes, picked up 4 personal fouls. Seemed like a conditioning issue to me. He just didn't seem quick enough. He didn't seem to be in the flow of the game. But this was the first game back for Terrence Davis, so I expect him to be better. The Knicks also entered into this game on a 3-game winning streak, playing exceptionally well. They win tonight, so that makes it 4 in a row for them. Honestly, the Kings are in the middle of this tough 6-game road trip that we've talked about. They split the first 2 games 1-1. Now they lose again, so they're 1-2 currently on the road trip. We'll talk about a little bit more about the road trip later on here because we got a couple more games coming up, and we definitely got to touch bases on them. But from my perspective, nobody really played well on the Kings tonight. I like what I saw to Keegan Murray. I like what I saw to Sabonis, but I don't like the missed free throws. And honestly, I think the defense just wasn't there tonight. It just wasn't. It wasn't there. And we talked about during the game, Calvin, that a lot of this Kings offense comes from defense, right? Where you get a stop, you get a run in transition, you get some easy buckets, you get people going. It didn't seem like the Kings really ever had that opportunity. I can't even remember a point that they were on a fast break in this game. Like they didn't play their game plan. This was not Kings basketball.
Yeah, they got outplayed in every facet. But I mean, it's one game. Joe, I see you here in the comments. I don't think anybody is worried about Sacramento at this point. I think we all are on the page of this was just a rough game. They have those games. Yep. Everybody in the NBA, we just saw Phoenix get blown out at home to Boston, and then Boston goes to Golden State the next day and loses. And they lose pretty big. Like it happens to every team. I don't think any of us are concerned about Sacramento for the rest of the season. This was just a rough game. De'Aaron Fox isn't playing. He'll be back. Yep. And like we said, the Kings still have a chance to salvage this road trip, and they could still come out of it with a winning record even. So this is just a rough throwaway game where nothing worked for you. But I think it's very important for the Kings mentally and physically to come out ready to play and, with a lot of energy and physicality early on in the game, because New York completely took that away from them to start this one. And if you're on the road, you have to kind of go out and impose your will, even against teams that you're expected to beat, like the New York Knicks.
Yep. And actually the Knicks were favored in this game, Calvin. They were -3 in this game. So, I expected them to win. You expected them to win. I know a lot of Kings fans thought we were rolling, and we are a better team than this team, in my opinion. We got a better record than them. We're higher in the standings. I think we're more talented than them. But this was a game at home. You let the guy that wasn't supposed to get rolling. And then we saw him early in the third quarter. Once they start to double team him, he just gets everybody else involved. Once he gets ejected, you heard me screaming. I'm like, they gave the game away. He just gave the game away. Yeah. And I thought that that's what was going to happen, but it just turned into more motivation for the Knicks. So yeah, it really was quite unfortunate. But there are 82 games in the regular season. You're gonna have nights where you just don't have it, and that's exactly what tonight was. I'd rather them do this against a tough Knicks team on the road in Madison Square Garden on a really tough road trip than at home against, the Detroit Pistons or somebody like that. Jeff, Davion's averaging 6.6 points per game this season currently. Progressive G says the Kings got exposed. They got beat by the Knicks B team in the second half. I mean, the second half of this game was pretty even, Progressive G. Really, it's the first half where things got out of control, and then the Kings were constantly fighting to get back in this game. The Kings scored more points than the Knicks in the third quarter, only by one. And then they also score more points in the fourth quarter as well, only by a couple. But I'm just saying, the first half is where things really, really started to kind of spiral out of control. But honestly, Calvin, I think games like this are necessary to have to be a good basketball team. You need moments where you get exposed, where you go back in and coach is like, okay, guys, back to the drawing board. We need to figure this out. We thought that we had it all worked out. We had our system, but something didn't work. Whether the Knicks did something or it was on the Kings offensively, something was not clicking in this game. And honestly, Calvin, me, I'm a big fan of making mistakes. I think that you learn more from making mistakes than you do by not. And honestly, this was a big mistake for the Kings in this game. So I think this is going to give them some stuff to work on and get better at. I mean, honestly, we talk about the free throw percentage, which seems to be an ongoing issue now. If I'm Coach Brown, I mean, the next day of practice, everyone's got to hit like 100 free throws just to even like enter in the building for me, because it just seems like that's just free points that they're giving away. I mean, they missed 12 free throws in this game. That's basically the difference in the game here. And then, obviously they did not shoot well from 3-point range. And just the ball movement wasn't there. We saw a lot of people standing around. There were certain moments in this game where we saw a little bit of ball movement, but we didn't see any dunks. We didn't see any backdoor cuts. We didn't really see much of any of that in this game for the Sacramento Kings. And that, I think, is what really kind of just took them out of what they're trying to do. And then we saw later in the game, they're just trying to jack up threes. You mentioned Malik Monk. I also want to throw Kevin Huerter's name in there as well, because there were a ton of bad 3-point attempts early in the shot clock with nobody under the basket in rebounding range. So that right there just makes it even tougher. Of course, if those shots go in, you're all like, good shot, we're back in the game. Everyone wants to cut it by 3 every single possession if they can. But those can really, really add up. And when your team has no momentum, you take bad shots early on in the shot clock, it just compiles. It compiles. All right. Dude, I was so ready to just talk about a Kings win today, Calvin. Honestly, I mean, I told you during the game, I already had my king of the game. It was going to be Julius Randle, was going to be my king of the game for fouling out there. Can we talk about that a little bit? Because that was a really, really puzzling situation. The dude was absolutely killing it. I mentioned 27 points at halftime, which was a season high for him, and he had that at half. He started out the third quarter, didn't really shoot the ball much, but was assisting because he constantly kept getting double teamed, and he'd pass, get somebody else open, or there'd be another pass after that where they'd have an open dunk or something. They're up 15. He starts arguing with the referees on a call, picks up 2 technicals, and is ejected. I mean, the dude's an idiot in my mind. What do you think is going on there?
I wish I knew, Barry. I mean, that's Julius Randle for you, right? Like, I'm not saying he does that on a regular basis, but he is a wild card when it comes to stuff like that. I mean, just how much he would have been killed if the Knicks had lost this game. You could have put it all on his shoulders. I think Tom Thibodeau's face after he gets ejected says it all. It's just like, what the fuck are you doing? I don't understand this move at all. I mean, to get 1 technical, okay, I get it. You're frustrated. But then as soon as he gets that tee, he immediately turns around and goes right to the other ref and says, hey, man, I just got one over here. I need a second. It's one of the most bonehead moves I can remember, at least this season, from anybody. That's... You cannot do that as the best player on your team. You absolutely cannot do that. And luckily for him, it didn't cost his team a victory. But man, that's just something that should never, ever happen.
Dude, Sass and I are on the same wavelength here, because I was saying DeMarcus Randle during the game, Calvin. But the funniest thing is, honestly, we see him absolutely cruising in the first half. The dude is hitting like fadeaway threes. We're talking about like a couple years ago, he was shooting 40% from 3-point range. And we're trying to figure out why, what changed? Why is he not that guy anymore? And we start talking about trades a little bit, how he'd fit on the Kings and a bunch of other teams. As soon as he gets ejected, you look at me and you say, that's why you don't trade for Julius Randle. Yeah. That right there is why you do not trade for Julius Randle. And yeah, it's a boneheaded play, Joe. It's a hot-headed, boneheaded play. That was a DeMarcus Cousins moment. That's exactly what that was.
Yeah.
You're up 15. You're controlling the game. You're having the best game of the season, and you just can't shut your mouth.
Yeah, I mean, he could have had 50 points in this game, maybe, if he really wanted to. I mean, I know the Kings were adamant about forcing the ball out of his hands. I thought they should have gone to that a lot sooner than to start the second half. And also, when you double team, you have to be way more committed to it than the Kings were. They were giving it too slow to the double. The direction the double team was coming from right in front of him, so he can see it slowly coming, and then it's there. Easy dump off pass. Yeah, he had a ton of hockey assists, right? The pass before the pass to the basket. Yeah, the Knicks were able to get whatever they wanted, but man, that is not a good highlight reel. Season high 27 points in the first half, and then ejected without a single field goal early in the third quarter.
Yep. And the best part about it, Calvin, is like you said, the coach is look on his face. Like he smiled, and then honestly, the whole Knicks team just acted like, oh yeah, that's just what happens.
Like, oh yeah, that's just Julius being Julius. There just it goes again.
Usual thing that happens here, and it's just we'll just keep playing. We're just gonna keep playing. The dude has been playing lights out. Takes himself out of the game. I don't know if he had like an early dinner reservation, or maybe he's like trying to catch this sorry, I keep calling them the Clippers. This Chargers game, because I know I'm paying attention. I got some fantasy football teams.
Maybe he needed some big fantasy game out of Justin Herbert like you do, or something like that. So
let's talk a little bit about Harrison Barnes. 15 points tonight. I've been talking about him as kind of like the glue guy on this team. He's trying to figure out what he's supposed to do on this team because of all these new additions. His role's changed a little bit. I remember, watching pregame tonight, they were saying Harrison Barnes is probably one of the most underrated players in the NBA. He doesn't get the credit for all the things that he can do, and he really is like a Swiss Army knife. Sometimes you need rebounds, he gets you rebounds. You need points, he can get you points. You need him to guard, their best player, he can do that too. But Calvin, what I want to focus on when talking about Harrison Barnes tonight is the defensive end of the floor. He was the main defender on Julius Randle, and Randle was getting anything he wanted in this game. What did you see between those two in that matchup? Any tips for Harrison Barnes to help improve that in the future? Like, what would you been doing a little bit differently if you were him?
If I was Harrison Barnes, I would have been playing off of him a little more and letting him shoot. I know he was hitting a lot of shots early on, but look, I made the comment to you, it's almost impossible to defend somebody when you're giving up a bunch of size on them and you let them beat you off the dribble routinely. So Julius Randle literally did whatever he wanted. And yes, he made some really wild, crazy shots that, if he takes those 10 more times, he's probably not going to hit many of them, especially that one corner three when I think Keegan Murray was closing out on him. It was good defense, really good contest, even forced Randle to kind of like change his shooting motion to a little bit to the side, and it still goes in. But when you let somebody get on a roll like that early on in the game, if they're a great scorer or a great offensive player like Julius Randle is, that's the type of thing that can happen to you. So it's a really, really tough matchup, right? I mean, you're not going to put Keegan Murray on him, even though he's about the same size height-wise as Harrison, might even be a little longer. He's not as strong as Harrison is, and you want somebody with a little more strength on a guy like Julius Randle. But I think the Kings had to have employed the double team way, way earlier in this game, especially when you start to get behind early in the game. It's just a tough matchup for him. Also, when you're missing De'Aaron Fox, who helps Harrison Barnes a lot on offense, and the rest of the team really isn't doing much offensively, they can't get many things going. That's how Harrison kind of finds his openings within the offense periodically. He's not really the guy on this team, even though we speak highly of him in how many ways he can contribute to a Kings win. He's not at this point in his career the guy that they look to as a go-to guy. So if one of your best players is out and the rest of the team is really struggling offensively, trying to get the ball to him and saying, Harrison, get us going offensively is not really the way to do it either. So just a bunch of problems kind of compounding all on top of each other. But defensively, I mean, it's kind of just a combination of you have a bad matchup. I mean, this is like him trying to guard Anthony Davis, one of those power forwards that has a lot of size and is also tremendously skilled and can shoot the ball a little bit. That's a really difficult matchup for anybody, let alone Harrison Barnes.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. I'm looking here at the chat. Sass says, that Barnes looked old and slow again, losing the ball dribbling. He tried to attack but kept losing the ball. I have to agree with Sass here. I mean, we've seen this a couple times, not the majority of the time, but there have been moments where it almost seems like the moment's a little too big for Harrison Barnes, which is weird saying about a guy that played on an incredible Warriors team, obviously won a ring with them. But it just seemed like moments tonight, maybe he was just off his game because Julius Randle dictated everything that he did. Like you can really get exhausted early or just kind of pushed out of your comfort zone when you have to guard a guy like Julius Randle that's just bullying you constantly over and over again. I think you're right, though. Like, we wanted to see double teams earlier. When we did see the double team, it seemed to be really, really late. And it almost was like a half-assed double team where they're like, okay, I'll come over and help you. And then, the hockey assist. Either one person's open or a second pass, and the next guy's open for a dunk or something like that. I talked to you a little bit during the game where I'm a big fan of when you go to double, the initial defender sends their man the opposite way. So then when they go to turn around, then the double comes on the offside and they're basically turning right into the double team. Versus tonight, we saw a lot of double teams at the top of the key where the ball handler can see the double team coming and he has a chance to make a play here. So that's something that I think was really missing in this game. But honestly, Calvin, I mean, this whole game was pretty much a shit show for the Sacramento Kings. They got down early. They gave up way too much. They let people get going. And then it was just constantly trying to battle back with not much energy. And honestly, when you're just trying to fight your way back and you can't make a bucket, it is really, really hard. And that is what I think, honestly, what put Harrison Barnes off and a lot of these other guys that just put them so off in this game was just they spent so much energy trying to slow down the Knicks and they just couldn't quite do it. How'd you feel about Davion Mitchell tonight? He started in place of Fox, 25 minutes, 7 points, 3 rebounds, 2 assists, only 5 shot attempts in this game. Obviously he was guarding Jalen Brunson a lot for this game, which I thought was going to be a really exciting matchup between two young guards, two guys that are undersized, but they use their body, they use their strength, to outplay guys that are bigger than them. And then we saw, Brunson leave the game after Mitchell sat on his ankle, kind of a weird injury to have, right? Somebody sat on your ankle. But what did you think about that matchup? What did you see out of Davion tonight? He was efficient. He basically shot 60% from the field, 50% from three-point range, but only 5 shots. What are your thoughts on him?
Yeah, I mean, again, it's real easy to say that he should have been more aggressive tonight, right? I forget who it was, but somebody mentioned they would like to see him shoot more mid-range jump shots, and I can agree with that. I think that Davion is, at this point, all either a three-pointer or try to get the ball as close to the basket as possible and try and draw a foul or get something easy at the rim. I definitely think he can take a page out of Fox's book and look for a few more mid-range jump shots here and there. At the same time, though, Davion's role on this team right now is pretty well defined. He's a guy that's going to be opportunistic offensively. Obviously, you want him to take open shots within the framework of the offense because that's how this offense succeeds. If you're going to pass up an open shot too many times in a row without moving the ball, that's counterproductive towards what your team's trying to do. But he is tremendously effective defensively. We saw it a lot tonight. We've seen it time and time again throughout the course of this season. And he was really, really big for them down the stretch defensively against Cleveland at guarding a much better backcourt, in my opinion, than what the Knicks have. So the idea that I think it was Callum said he's not ready to help this team win, I can't get behind that statement. Like, he is very important to what this team does, especially a team that is trying to get better defensively. He's one of the best defenders they have on this team. That impacts winning very, very largely. Now, the progression offensively, again, yeah, you might not be as happy with it or think that it hasn't come far enough, especially in a game when De'Aaron Fox isn't playing. He's a starter, so he is going to have to be relied upon a little bit more. But I think offensively, the blame is really on everybody for this game. They just didn't play the way that this team, that we're accustomed to seeing this team play. To say that Sabonis could be more aggressive in certain areas, yeah, I think it's true. Davion probably could have been more aggressive in certain areas as well offensively. But I'm not going to dogpile on Davion and say that he is not able to help this team win or not contribute whatsoever. He's a very important part of what this team does. But offensively, if you shoot this bad as a team, you turn the ball over a bunch, and you can't stop the Knicks inside, it doesn't matter. I mean, Davion could have had 20 in this game, and they would have still lost, possibly.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. Matthew, good to see you. 35 minutes late, as always, but you're here, so that's good. I see Alfie Man says, that you, Deli. Honestly, Calvin, what really sticks out most to me in this game, other than all the numbers that we've been talking about, is just no De'Aaron Fox. I think that this clearly shows how much this team was missing De'Aaron Fox. We got away with it in the last game. We minimized him not being there, but tonight really showed. It really did. Everyone's high, or a lot of people are high on Davion. They're high on Dellavedova. But Fox is the guy, dude. He is one of the best players on this team, and he's not healthy, and he's who you really miss tonight, both on the offensive and the defensive end of the floor. We can't really rely that much on Davion Mitchell. This is his second year in the NBA. The dude is a defender. He's not a prolific scorer. Same with Dellavedova. This dude is like a veteran role player that can play great at times, but he's not somebody you can lean on offensively to keep your team going. That's De'Aaron Fox. So I think, honestly, for me, the biggest takeaway from this game is this just shows how much this team really, really needs De'Aaron Fox, because De'Aaron Fox dictates the terms of the game. He can really control the pace of the game, and that's what the Kings lost in this game, was they lost the pace, they lost control. They let the Knicks do anything they wanted, and the Kings were just trying to catch up. They were trying to just be part of the game as much as they could. But, honestly, they need to control the pace of every game they're in if they want to have a chance to win. And De'Aaron Fox really, really helps this team on that. Any thoughts on that, Cal?
Yeah, of course, De'Aaron Fox. He's one of the best players on this team. So it's obviously going to be hard, especially in a game when, look, Fox, when you talk about how Sacramento runs their offense, it's ball movement, it's trying to get guys open looks off of double screens for threes, stuff like that. When all of that stuff breaks down, or when a team defends those things really well, De'Aaron Fox is the best guy on the team at creating his own offense, creating his own shot. And so when you're missing that and your offense is struggling to run as it normally does, I mean, it's really, really hard to manufacture points and to get back in a game when you're down double digits, because then you feel like there's more pressure. We do need to take more threes, or, we're looking for the quick strike, that sort of a thing, to try and get back in this game. De'Aaron Fox, of course, is huge for all of that stuff. So, and he's been a really reliable defender as well this year. I mean, they missed. It's the understatement of the year to say they missed De'Aaron Fox in this game.
Shout out to Urslow, Alex, and BCH Custom Cabinetry. Good to see you guys. Fox would not have prevented the Kings from missing 12 free throws. He probably wouldn't have slowed down RJ Barrett that much, but I'm talking about pace and controlling the offense. This team didn't get many fast break opportunities tonight. The Kings were taking bad shots in a half-court offense. Fox is the guy that can create shots. He's the speed guy. He can get them out on the fast break and run and really kind of not let this Knicks defense settle down in half court and force this team to take bad shots over and over again. So I think that, they really missed Fox in terms of the fact that he can get this team up and rolling and really control the pace of this game. I think that was probably the biggest thing that they missed out of
De'Aaron's a good enough defender that he's capable of guarding RJ Barrett too. Like, I mean,
yep.
I'm not saying that he shuts him down for 0 points, but he definitely is a good enough defender to guard RJ Barrett and change that matchup for sure.
This Knicks team's got a lot of talent, Calvin. It really does. I mean, we talk about the big offseason acquisition of Jalen Brunson. That dude's a stud, man. RJ Barrett, I'm a big fan of him out of Duke. And then obviously we all know about the boneheaded Julius Randle is talented, but not always there mentally. DeMarcus Randle. I mean, basically, Kings fans out of anybody should understand exactly what Julius Randle is for the franchise. And then guys like Mitchell Robinson, they're not incredible at everything, but the things they do, they do really, really well, which is protect the paint, get offensive rebounds. Only 19 minutes for him, but he had some dunks in this game and had a couple blocks, including that block 3-pointer, I believe, on Malik Monk late in this game, like literally at the 3-point line, swats his shot down. So, this team, they have a good system. They got a good coach. And basically that's what it came down to in this game. The Kings looked tired. They didn't have their leader. And they got out-bullied in this game. They played Knicks basketball tonight. They did not play Kings basketball. And then also the bench. I'm going to throw too much partying in NYC, says Lydia. I've definitely been there. But, honestly, the bench too, right? Like, we've expected this bench to just produce so much. We talk about how deep the bench is on this Kings team and what they can provide. They were there tonight, but they didn't do much. Malik Monk, 3 of 15 from the field. 3 of 15 from the field. You're not going to win a lot of games with anybody on your team going 3 for 15, much less your sixth man or your best player off the bench when you're missing a guy like De'Aaron Fox and just not playing well. So, you can't end every game on a 19-0 run, Calvin. I think that's pretty easy to understand. The Kings wish they could have ended this game on a 19-0 run. We'd be on a 2-game winning streak right now, but it's not possible. It's not possible.
Move on to the next one.
All right here. Did you see the Keegan Murray thumb injury? Apparently he injured his left thumb in the game versus Cleveland. Was shooting really well tonight, 3 of 8 from 3-point range. But we saw him grabbing that left thumb kind of late in this game. Any thoughts on how that could affect him?
I mean, it's not an injury to his shooting thumb. It's his offhand. So he should be able to still put up a bunch of threes, without too much difficulty. But it definitely affects you, right? If you're playing defense, how many times have you played defense, try to go for a steal, and you get your finger jammed on the ball? I mean, that could definitely hurt him going for offensive rebounds or even trying to take the ball to the basket, getting hit on the hands, as you're trying to put up a shot. I think it's something that definitely is painful and bothers you. But again, it's your offhand, it's your off thumb. So at this point, it's pretty much just going to be a pain management thing, I think. If you feel like you can play through it, then you can play through it. Otherwise, it does affect you, but he's a shooter and it's not on his shooting hand. So that's the good news.
Justin Herbert, touchdown. I like it. It's not Keenan Allen, but that's okay. Guys, I got 2 fantasy teams that are fighting for playoff positions. I got to get this win today. Callum wants to know if Davion is better than Bones Highland. That's a tough one. Calvin?
No, I would say Bones Highland is playing better right now. Yeah.
I would agree. With that. Some people here saying that Monk must have been out in New York City partying last night. It was a Saturday. You're in the big city. I don't know. I don't know. I mean, I've been saying that Malik Monk is like the new J.R. Smith, right? And I say that in a good way because I like J.R. and I like Malik Monk. But we all know that J.R. had his partying days in New York City. That is for sure. I want to talk a little bit about the assist numbers here because I see some people talking about assists here and turnovers in the chat. You know, Kevin Huerter led this team with 6 assists tonight. I think that just goes to show right there how much the ball movement really was out there, right? 6 assists for Kevin Huerter, only 4 assists for Sabonis, and 4 assists for Dellavedova. Outside of that, nobody had more than 2, so not a lot of assists. But then again, those don't happen when you're missing every shot. So it's hard to get an assist when you pass to a guy and he just bricks a three-pointer, which seemed to be happening all game long. All right. So I kind of want to move on from here, Calvin, and talk about the future road trip. But you have any last comments here on tonight's game? You know, what the Kings are probably talking about in the locker room right now, what you're preaching if you're Coach Brown, and honestly, you know, any learning lessons that the Kings can take from this game.
Yeah, I mean, there's a ton of learning lessons you can take from every game, win or loss, right? That stuff never stops. I think if you're in the Kings locker room right now, you're saying, look, we just did not play our best game at all tonight. We didn't really have anything going. When you miss shots, you miss shots. You have to come in next game with the same type of mentality and look to take good shots. I mean, I think one of the learning lessons from this game is going to be, let's not dribble down into 3 people and try to jack up something early in the shot clock, because I saw Malik Monk do a bunch of that. Kevin Huerter took a couple early threes. You know, let's move the ball from side to side and see if we can get a better look than those. But you're going to keep taking the shots, right? This is a team that live by the 3, die by the 3 is the classic cliche. I'm not totally bought in on that with this Kings team. They do take a ton of threes. But that's how every team operates in the NBA nowadays. So and they've got a bunch of good shooters on this team. I think the biggest thing that you have to be saying in the locker room right now is we've got to find a way to mentally get this out of our systems and bounce back and come in to start the game with the right physicality, energy, and effort, both on offense and on defense, particularly on defense, kind of dictating the style of play and the pace of play in the game right from the beginning, not sitting back, you know, and letting this loss kind of marinate in your head for too long. You've got to get it out of your system. You have to refocus yourself, and you got to find a way to play with a lot more energy and effort.
Energy and effort, and just, move past this game. You had a bad game, whatever. It's 25 games into the season. You have a bad one. Just move on. I don't think a lot of people would have expected the Kings to be at this point this far into the season. So, you know, we're playing with house money at the moment. Let's take a look here at the Western Conference standings. Phoenix lost today, and then the Kings lost. But they're still, look at 14-11, 3 games over 500. We got 3 games left on this tough road trip before we return home to Sacramento. But the Kings are the 5th seed in the Western Conference, which I know Calvin's liking that right now, because if they would have won this game, they would have shifted in the 4 seed, and Calvin's hair would potentially be on the line. But hey, I mean, you had a bad game.
Hair's still on the line, man.
You move on.
Hair's on the line all season, no matter what.
You move on. You have a bad game, you move on. And moving on, let's move on, Calvin. Let's talk about the rest of this road trip. So we lost to the Knicks today. Sorry, I got to refresh this page real quick. The next 3 games are tough ones, man. It's against the Philadelphia 76ers. It's against the Toronto Raptors. And then it lightens up a little bit against the Detroit Pistons. But you mentioned they've been playing pretty well before returning home on Monday the 19th against Charlotte. The next game is obviously the one we're circling here. And we're playing against a really good Philadelphia team. Their record doesn't show it. You know, they're 14-12 right now, but they have an amazing center in Joel Embiid. I believe he had 39 points today. The dude is an absolute beast. We'll see if De'Aaron Fox is available to play in this game. He's currently listed as out. However, this will change. This game is not until Tuesday. They do have Tyrese Maxey and Daniel House both listed as out for the Sixers. So we'll keep an eye on that and see what happens. The Sixers are a big favorite over the Kings in this game. Calvin, I guess first off, I'm going to ask you, what do the Kings need to do to slow down Joel Embiid?
Well, that's a much easier said thing than done, obviously, right? But again, I think you've got to come out and be really, really physical. You have to make him guard as well. So the good news is Domantas Sabonis is a very skilled, talented offensive player who can make Embiid work hard defensively, and hopefully you're able to get a few fouls on him, right? But I think a lot of people might get what they want in this game and see more of Alex Len or Rashawn Holmes just to kind of combat the size issue that the Kings are going to face in this game, and especially if Domantas Sabonis picks up early fouls. That could be the end, really quickly for Sacramento. So they're going to have to kind of build walls and defend, close off the paint, much like the Knicks were doing to the Kings tonight. Force Philadelphia to be outside jump shooting teams, and if they beat you that way, they beat you that way. But you are, hopefully going to shoot better yourselves. Embiid is a load, right? You're going to have to send the doubles at him early and often. Like we talked about today, where you send the double team from, I think is going to be really important because Embiid's a willing passer. He's not, like Jokic necessarily or even Domantas Sabonis, but he's still a willing passer who can make the right read. So you got to be very convicted and set in those double teams, making sure that you're not too lackadaisical in bringing that second guy over. And then the rotations behind it are going to have to be key. But rebounding, again, that's the number one key here, going up against a team with a big man inside who can clear a lot of space. And it's not just about Embiid, right? It's that he commands so much space and attention that it makes it easier for other guys, smaller guys, to sneak in and steal rebounds. So rebounding as a team is going to be the absolute most important thing going into this game.
Key King says the Sixers are a slow team. We just have to push the pace on them and tire them out. Lydia says the Sixers have big, strong players, and the game will be physical even more so than tonight. Kings just going to have to see this as a playoff game, 110%. Yeah, I mean, honestly, for me, I think the Kings are probably going to be flying to Philadelphia tonight from New York, or maybe early tomorrow morning. Tomorrow is going to be a lot of watching game film, look and see what went wrong tonight. But honestly, for me, Calvin, I think the Kings need to get back to the basics. They need to figure out what took them out of their rhythm, why they're not playing with their style of play, why they're letting other teams dictate the game. They need to be more physical. And like I said, get back to the basics. I think the Kings got to shoot better from the free throw line. They got to shoot better from three-point range, and they just overall have to be more efficient as a team. I think that is going to be one of the keys to my game here is efficiency. You got to get rebounds like you mentioned, but you got to just make opportunities with the chances you do have. And yes, rebounds can give you more opportunities, second chance points, stuff like that. But if you're playing against a really, really good team like this and a really, really good center in Joel Embiid, you got to go at him. You got to attack him early, try and get him in foul trouble, and honestly, just try and make shots and make less opportunities for him to get rebounds and stuff like that. You have any keys to the game here, Calvin?
Yeah, I think my three keys would be, number one, rebounding as a team. It's going to be my number one key, I think, for a long time with this team, especially if they keep playing small. Number two would be the battle of the bench. The Kings bench hasn't given them much lately, and this is a team where I think they've got an advantage in the bench unit. You think about all the players that Philadelphia's had in their second unit that aren't there anymore. Seth Curry, Andre Drummond, DeAnthony Melton, the list goes on and on. Danny Green, not there anymore. So this is a game where the Kings bench should be able to take advantage and be able to give them a lot more than what they've given them so far on this road trip. And it could be a good opportunity for a bunch of these guys to bounce back, like Malik Monk. So, and then number three, find a way to get some easy buckets. Transition, as it's been pointed out here, the Sixers play at a pretty slow pace. So if you're Sacramento and you're able to figure out a way to get some of those defensive rebounds and not have them turn into second chance opportunities for Philadelphia, it can lead to some easy transition threes, could get Kevin Huerter going, could get Davion Mitchell going if he's got opportunities to get to the rim. So making the game a little bit easier for Sacramento.
So Tyrese Maxey is still currently listed as out for this game. We'll see if he's available. But, they still do have a pretty good three-headed monster in Embiid, Harden, and you have Tobias Harris, all capable scorers, all guys that have kind of, established themselves in the league as a really, really good player, if not one of the best players at their position. How are you game planning for this game? Are you saying we're going to slow down Embiid and we're going to let everybody else beat us? Are you kind of like, okay, we need to slow down Embiid and Harden? Or are you going to let Embiid go ham and then just not let anybody else score in this game?
I mean, I'm probably game planning mostly around Joel Embiid. I want to pack the paint tight, take those easy opportunities away, make sure that we're in rebounding position, and force Philadelphia to beat you as a jump shooting team. And hopefully that means that they miss a bunch of shots, and that allows you to get out in transition. I think if your rotations, they've been pretty good overall for the most part this season, trying to defend the three-point line. But when you play against a team with a player as dominant as Joel Embiid, you have to do everything in your power to make it really, really difficult on him and to limit, him getting into a zone shot after shot. He loves to settle for those turn types of shots. If he's going to sit outside and shoot a bunch of threes, I live with that. But I can't let him get comfortable in the mid to low post where he can use a variety of different moves to beat you, draw fouls, things like that. Those are the plays where I'm trying to get the ball out of his hands before he's able to get to those moves. And then you're going to force the rest of the team, to come up big and beat you.
Yeah, we really need to see the Kings put a better effort out there on the court against them on Tuesday as opposed to what they did tonight. But yeah, I mean, for me, I want them to win this game, right? I'm just going to say that. I want the Kings to win. But honestly, if they can just control the pace in this game, shoot better from three and from the free throw line, I'll consider it a win either way. They just need to figure out a way to kind of get back to their game plan, get back to what they're doing so that they can finish up this road trip and put themselves in a good position to succeed when they get home here to Sacramento. Any other thoughts on that game, Calvin? I want to just kind of talk about the other two games real quick, just briefly, Toronto and Detroit, what you're looking forward to in those games. And then I kind of want to open it up to everybody here in the chat. If they have anything that they want to talk about, any concerns, questions, comments. And then also, you and I have been talking the past couple weeks about, the Kings should stay put. Don't ruin the chemistry. We're happy with where they're at now. Does these losses start to make you think that they need some more? Is there anybody you're targeting right now? We'll talk about that next. But first off, Toronto, Detroit, anything you're looking to or forward to in those games?
Well, Toronto is a back-to-back coming off of this Philadelphia game, right? So that could be a very problematic game, slowing down Pascal Siakam, who's not maybe as strong or physical as Julius Randle, but equally as talented for a guy his size. He's having a really phenomenal year. And I think a lot of Kings fans' eyes are going to be on that Toronto game because you keep hearing these rumors about the Kings being in on or going after some of the Raptors players like OG Anunoby and Pascal. It is that either of those guys are obtainable for this team, but I think there's going to be a lot of eyes on this game for that regardless. And then Detroit, again, it's a game that the Kings are going to be expected to win regardless of the results in the next two. And it's the closeout game of the road trip, right? So you want to finish it off strong, make sure that you get those good vibes on the plane back home to Sacramento and come out of there with a win.
Yeah, they need to look to find a way to win 2 out of these next 3 games if they want to split the games on this road trip and return home. But either way, Calvin, we're currently, 3 games above 500. So even if they were to lose the next 3 games, they'd be returning home at 500 and facing an injury-riddled Charlotte Hornets team. So, either way, I think the Kings are in a good position here. But honestly, like I said, my main goal over the next couple games is to get back to Kings basketball, control the pace, control the tempo. Can they do that with without De'Aaron Fox? We'll see. But I think that that's important. I mean, if they can return to home at 500 with a healthy De'Aaron Fox, and some of those guys have started, pulling out of those shooting slumps, I would be extremely, extremely happy. Okay, we talked about that. Let's talk a little bit about the current state of the Kings. If you guys have any ideas about trades, people you want to sign, stuff like that, go ahead and drop them here in the chat. We'll definitely talk about that. Calvin, two guys that we have, basically circled, or the media has circled that the Kings have had interest in, right? You want to name those guys?
Well, there's really three right now that whose names keep coming up. I mean, I guess you can add even DeMar DeRozan in there as of late, because I've heard his name a bunch too. But it's OG Anunoby, Pascal Siakam, and then, oh man, I'm all of a sudden drawing a blank. Who is the other guy that we keep talking about? Kyle Kuzma. Those are the three guys right now that everybody seems to be the biggest or the bullish on.
So where are you at on this team right now? Because over the past couple weeks, everything's good when we're winning basketball games. We're on winning streaks. We're like, don't change anything. Don't mess anything up. But, we just had 2 losses against 2 really good Eastern Conference teams. I'm more disappointed in today's loss than I was against that loss against the Bucks, because I think the Bucks are, if not the best, one of the best teams in the NBA. I see them getting very, very close to the NBA Finals, or at least to the Eastern Conference Finals. Versus the Knicks, I do not see that. I saw this as a Kings win, or it should have been a Kings win today. But where you currently sit with the team, you think it's time to make a move? Are you holding off? Obviously, Thursday is that elusive December 15th deadline where all these guys become trade eligible that have been signed in the offseason. Where are you currently at with this roster?
Well, I'm still feeling really good about the roster. I mean, again, I'm not making a move just to make a move. I think that the Kings, if they don't make any moves, before the trade deadline in February, they're still going to be a good team. They're still, probably in my mind's a playoff team. I've seen enough from them this year to feel confident about that. Now, there are some players out there that if you were to tell me there's a deal on the table that could be done for these guys, I would definitely say yes to. Like Pascal Siakam or OG Anunoby are definitely 2 of those guys. If you're able to get them, of course it depends on what you have to give up, but those are players that I think could really take the Kings to another level. I like Kyle Kuzma a lot as well. I think he would fit really well on this team. That's a deal that I would be a little more suspect of in terms of what I have to give up to get Kyle Kuzma right now, knowing that he's going to be a free agent next year anyway. And yeah, I know you don't want to have to overpay or overbid when you could possibly get him now. But when you're talking about giving up first-round picks and all of that stuff, I'd much rather go after those 2 Raptor players than Kyle Kuzma.
Yeah, I mean, as Lydia says here in the chat, the Kings have been trying to get Kuzma for how long? We know that failed Lakers trade for Kuzma and Buddy Hield. That thing fell apart. So I'm interested to see what the Kings do. I do like Kuzma a lot. He's got a player option for next season at $13 million. So we'll see, if he's going to opt in or not, or if maybe he opts out, maybe it makes him less valuable.
Oh, he's opting out. He's been saying that he's not very happy there.
So then maybe that gives the Kings a little bit lesser of a price tag to bring in a guy like that. We saw Dante DiVincenzo that the Kings traded for after trying to trade for twice, right? Like the first trade deal fell apart. They're like, we still want him. He's on our targeted list. And then Calvin, they let him go in the offseason. They didn't even bring him back. He's now with Golden State. So that makes me a little confused. But, maybe Kuzma's on the list. I do like Kuzma. I think that he could help this Kings team. But you're right. It really depends on what the price is, what it comes down to. $13 million, you could do a Kuzma for Richaun Holmes trade straight up. If you think that helps the team, does Washington do that? I'm not quite sure. You're going to have to pay Richaun's next couple years of salary. But, maybe a second or 2 second-round picks helps make the deal work. I'm not really quite sure. Kuzma, for me, though, seems to be more available than a guy like Siakam or The other dude, I can't even think of his name right
OG
now.
Anunoby.
OG Anunoby. Those two guys, obviously I like them a lot. I think that those are more of like home run candidates. So the Kings would probably have to give up a lot more to get one of those guys. So I'm currently in the tinker stage. Let's tinker with this roster a little bit, which is leaning more towards a Kyle Kuzma addition than a big splash move. However, that could change, man. We'll see, what the rest of this road trip shows us. Like we've been saying for the past week, this road trip is great because it's really going to show us the true colors of this Kings team and where they're really at. So I think Monty is definitely, thinking some things through, and probably towards the end of this road trip, he'll have a better idea of what the exact needs are of this basketball team. Lydia says Metu and Holmes for Kuzma. I don't know if you'd even have to give up Metu to get Kuzma, Lydia. I think you could probably do it for Holmes and potentially a second round pick. I think that Holmes does have a decent contract, and who's the starting center on this Wizards team, Calvin? Are they playing Porzingis at the center right now?
It's, I guess, hard to say what position Porzingis really does play
Gafford.
for them. I think he is. Daniel Gafford plays as well. They've got some options. They don't have Thomas Bryant anymore. He's in LA now. But they might want Holmes. I don't know. And
just looking here at the payroll for the Wizards, Gafford signed a 3-year contract extension, which goes into effect next year. So he only makes $1.9 million this year, but next year he'll make $12.4, $13.4 the year after that, and $14.4 the year after that. So that could affect any potential Richaun Holmes trade to the Wizards. Obviously, there's 3-team trade potential available, but Calvin, you always kind of pump the brakes on that because you're like, it's hard enough to get 2 teams to agree on a trade. 3-4 teams trade, it's almost impossible to get everybody to agree. But I think I'm leaning, or at least I'm moving more towards the camp, Calvin, of something needs to be done here. I'm not saying a big move, but whether it's a little bit of tinkering with the roster. I know everyone's been screaming, especially Lydia. Lydia here has been screaming at the top of Golden One Center. She's been yelling out, "We need a rim protector. We need a rim protector." She was hoping the beam was going to light it in the sky. Bring a rim protector to Sacramento. Maybe that's what we need, Calvin. Maybe that is what we need. I still really like Mo Bamba.
The 3 guys we're talking about right now are really known for rim protection. So
I like Mo Bamba. He's still my guy. I think he is probably, if I'm like certain, if Monty is certain that this team needs rim protection, Mo Bamba is the guy that really sticks out the most to me so far. Anybody else for you?
Yeah, I still like Mo Bamba a lot. Again, it's just hard, right? Because I don't think that if the Kings were to go out and get, I'm just using Rudy Gobert's name so that you have an idea of the type of player, right? I'm not talking about Rudy himself, but a big guy that is really well known for protecting the basket and blocking shots. I'm not sure how much, does it help the Kings? Yes, it does. But offensively, I don't know that you just put that person in this lineup and move Sabonis over to the 4 and things are still as good as they were before that. So it's about trying to find the right player for both offense and defense for this system to work. And that player probably isn't a guy that's over 7 feet tall, because those people, the ones that do exist,
those people
can still
Calvin.
make this offensive, those types of players that do exist that would make this offense work still the same way, you're not going to be able to get them. They're not available. Yep. So it's a very fine line. I do think that if you were able to make a trade for OG Anunoby or Pascal Siakam, that would be an absolute win for the Sacramento Kings. Definitely. I don't know what you'd have to give up to get Siakam. I don't really know what you'd have to give up to get OG either. But those are examples of guys that could really take this team to the next level, guys that can fit offensively and defensively. So, and Siakam, that guy's been in the early, conversations for maybe he should be in the MVP conversation. I don't think he's running away with it by any stretch, but he's had a really, really, really good year. So adding a player of that caliber to this team really makes a difference. Absolutely.
Yeah, and it all comes down to what the cost is. But I thought that was a great point, Calvin. We say rim protection, but, you could go around the league, you could filter and say, okay, who blocks the most shots? It doesn't mean they're going to fit this team. It doesn't mean they're going to fit this scheme or anything, right? You need more than rim protection. You need a rim protector that works well with this team. Whether that's Mo Bamba is yet to be seen. I like him. I think that he potentially could be that guy, but we don't really know. So that's definitely something to keep an eye on. Callum says Wendell Carter. I think he might be a little bit harder to pry away. What are your thoughts on Wendell Carter?
Yeah, I just don't really see the Magic wanting to give him up. I know they have a plethora of big men down there to choose from, but it just seems to me that he's part of their plans for the future now with Bol, and they're even hoping to get Jonathan Isaac back in there. I just don't know what it would take to get a guy like that if the conversation be had, right? Like Orlando's a tough team to kind of think about in the process because they're losing games, but they have a ton of young talent. They're doubling down on the big lineup. Wendell Carter seems to make a lot of sense, if you want to go that direction. So that's a big question mark. Any of the big men on Orlando, I think, would be a big question mark for me.
Yeah, I agree. Tom says Embiid, 53 points today. Wow. Last time I checked, he had 39. So the dude absolutely went off. That's wild. That's wild. Key King says, I really wish we could have snagged Jalen Smith from the Suns last season. And Alex wants to know, who do you think is easier to get, Kyle Kuzma or Mo Bamba, Calvin? What do you think would cost less?
Man, my intuition says Mo Bamba would cost less because he's not as big time of a player as Kyle Kuzma, who's one of the leading scorers on that team. He's also not really playing as many minutes. That's my gut feeling, but again, that's almost an impossible question to answer. I really don't know.
Yeah, that's a tough one. That's a tough one. I mean, let's walk it through. So you can see here Mo Bamba, he's 24, he's making 10.3 million this year, he's 10.3 next year. However, next year's contract is only partially guaranteed. So, that's basically a positive for the team, right? The Magic have the opportunity where they can bring him back next year if they want to, or they could just cut him and he'll only count partially against the salary cap, as opposed to a guy, like Kyle Kuzma, 27, 13 million this year, and he's got a $13 million player option at the end for next season. So that kind of puts all the control in Kyle Kuzma's hands. So maybe Kyle Kuzma's playing a little bit better this season than Mo Bamba, but maybe the price tag is a little bit less for Kyle Kuzma because the team has no control of him after this season. It's really up to him. And if he gets injured or if something happens, he could opt in for $13 million next year on a team that maybe if it's a serious injury, he wouldn't even be playing and he'd still be getting that money. So Kyle Kuzma is probably, in my mind, a little bit easier to get than a guy like Mo Bamba, just in terms of, what the team has control over. You mentioned a lot of these Magic players. Here's the list. So Jonathan Isaac, has he played yet this year?
I don't believe he has.
I don't know what to think about that guy. And then Markelle Fultz. This is like the all-injury team. You got Wendell Carter. He's got 3 years left after this year. As you can see here, it's a front-loaded contract, so each year decreases, which a lot of basketball teams really, really like because it gives them flexibility. So Wendell Carter's contract is really, really good for the Orlando Magic. So I do not see them moving on from him unless they're getting a pretty good package, because like I said, he's only 23 and this is a very team friendly contract, as opposed to a guy like Mo Bamba, who's not signed long term and is not playing a ton of minutes for them. He's probably going to be the guy to go on this team. You're not getting rid of Paulo, probably not getting rid of Wendell Carter. I almost called him Kendall Jenner. Wendell Carter. Mo Bamba is probably the first guy to go. So honestly, I think both of these guys are available. I think both of them could fit this team. Mo Bamba probably protects the rim a little bit better, Kuzma probably gives you a little bit more offense than Mo Bamba, even though Mo Bamba can shoot the three. I think both of these guys are options. Monty's got to flip a coin here, basically. What do you think, Cal?
Yeah, I mean, I don't know about flip a coin. Look, I mean, we're leaving out an important part of this equation too, and that's what does the other team want in return, right? That's going to determine how easy it is to get one of these two guys. Both teams are in very different situations. The Wizards aren't, winning a ton of games, but they're winning a lot more than Orlando. Orlando's got, I think, a lot more different pieces that they're not really sure of in terms of long-term fit. Washington is maybe more of a completed team right now, but they kind of are questioning whether or not it's going to work in the long run. So to me, it's about what is the other team demanding in return for both of these guys. I think if you're Washington, you could ask for Kyle Kuzma has played pretty well, so you could ask for a pretty big package in return. If you're Orlando, you could be asking for a lot of different things, draft picks, assets, all sorts of stuff. And that might put the Kings at a disadvantage because they can't trade a first-round pick right now until the year 2028. So,
Yep.
Again, there's a lot of things in the works here that can change how easy it is to make a deal for either one of these players.
Yeah, I think that's a great point you made there. As much as we like Kevin Huerter here, the trade for Kevin Huerter can impact this basketball team in terms of the fact that the Kings don't really have control of their first round pick for a couple years due to the protections on that. So that doesn't allow them to trade it. So, maybe a guy like Mo Bamba, maybe a guy like Kyle Kuzma is a lot more achievable than a guy like a Siakam or, one of those other guys where you're going to have to give up a lot and you don't really have the assets to give at the moment. I want to throw Atlanta in there as another possibility. We've been hearing all the drama surrounding Atlanta. And we know that they don't have much draft capital because they just traded for DeJounte Murray. And their power forward, who the Kings need, has not been very happy there. And they also own that first-round pick from the Sacramento Kings in the Huerter trade that is lottery protected in the first year. I believe it's top 10 protected in the next year and like top 8 protected the year after that. If the Kings were to work out a trade with them, they could unprotect that draft pick, which could be valuable to Atlanta. So I think the Kings have a little bit more to offer a team like Atlanta than they do, one of these other squads. So definitely something to keep an eye on. Any other players, Calvin? I see Brian says DeMar DeRozan. We talked about that kind of in the last podcast. Quick thoughts on DeMar DeRozan?
Very interesting. I mean, obviously a really, really talented player, that you would expect to help most teams no matter where he went. I just wonder, again, I think it's probably going to take a big package to get somebody like DeMar DeRozan. I don't know that Chicago would be willing to do the deal with just Harrison Barnes. That doesn't make a whole lot of sense to me. And then once you get DeMar, I said this before, it's not that I think DeMar couldn't change his game a little bit up so that he fits more in with Mike Brown's system offensively. But you're taking away some of what his best attributes are as a player offensively. He's a very, very strong one-on-one isolation player, a guy that you can give the ball to and say, go win us a game. And he's shown that he can do that. I don't know if that's necessarily the best fit for this Kings team. I would be looking more of a guy actually like Kyle Kuzma's skill set. He has been sort of a volume shooter in the past, but I think his ability to space the floor, he's a better three-point shooter than DeMar DeRozan is. DeRozan's, I would say he's an average defender, just like Kyle Kuzma, but my biggest concern with DeRozan is just disrupting what has made this offense one of the 2 best or 3 best in the NBA all season long. Is that worth it, and does it, work for the Kings long term?
Yeah, I agree with you there. I like DeRozan a lot, but I don't know if he fits this team in terms of age. Also, it's tough bringing in a guy mid-season that's going to have to make that many adjustments and changes. Maybe DeMar DeRozan is a better option, or a guy to bring in an off-season where you have a training camp, you can adjust. I don't know if this team would be able to adjust on the fly in the middle of a good season that they're having, to bring in a guy that does things a little bit different like DeMar DeRozan. And as Callum says here, DeRozan doesn't play defense. So yeah, honestly, I don't know, Joe, if he does fit on this team. It would be very, very interesting to see how he would fit. I think he could look great in some games, but like I said, I'm in the tinkering phase right now. I'm not trying to make any home runs or big adjustments. It's just tinkering with this team a little bit, trying to figure out what didn't work tonight. Why didn't the Kings have it tonight? Why did they seem a little bit off? What do they need to do to get back to their style of play? Honestly, the biggest adjustment I'd make right now is, bringing in a healthy De'Aaron Fox. How long does that take? We don't know. But, this Kings team, they were able to beat a really good Cleveland team without De'Aaron Fox. They didn't have it tonight. But sometimes, the best trades are just getting back your team healthy. So I think that could definitely help them. Let's see here. Brian wants Enes Kanter. Dude, I was high on him in the past, when the Kings needed rebounding. I think he's one of the best rebounders in the league, but honestly, I don't even know what is he doing. Is he in the NBA right now, Calvin?
Not that I'm aware of. In fact, I think he's planning on suing the NBA for blacklisting him.
Interesting. Yeah, I'm definitely not interested. Callum wants to bring over some NBA overseas players. He says buy out Sasha, $750,000, bring him in. Interesting. Kanter is a motivational speaker now. Wow, that's crazy. People move on pretty fast. Key Kings wants Roy Hibbert, Calvin. We might as well bring in my guy, Koufos, Costa Koufos. Bring him on this team. He can protect the rim. That's all he can really do.
Yeah. Greg Oden's probably available. I know is he the athletic director at Butler now or something? Or maybe not the athletic director, but he has some position at Butler basketball. That. So he's probably willing to take on a contract to play in the NBA again.
I saw that. All right. Well, I think that pretty much wraps up, our episode today. I want to appreciate you guys. Thank you guys so much for hanging out. Please don't forget to smash up that like button, hit that subscribe button. Calvin, last question for you. Or actually, I got two questions for you. First off, why are we both wearing gray shirts today? Did we plan this?
I don't know, man. Sometimes that's the way it works.
Maybe it's the weather outside, dude. It's been so gray.
Yeah, it is a little gray outside. Yeah.
It's been so gray outside. And then the second question is, I talked about it a little bit, but the Kings have tomorrow off. They're traveling to Philadelphia. If you're in charge of this team, what's tomorrow going to look like for you and for the Kings?
Well, if it were me, I'd be in the gym as early as I could, trying to get a bunch of shots up. Like, we've got to shoot better as a team. I need some guys to kind of break out of their slumps a little bit. I'd be getting to work. This team's young. I would have a physical practice. Forget like being too cautious or worried about people, possibly getting hurt or anything like that. Obviously don't make anything too ridiculous, but I'm trying to get this team kind of refocused mentally so they can come out and set the tone physically. And I want to get a bunch of shots up. It's going to be a work day. I bet you Davion Mitchell would love it. I don't know about the rest of the team, but
there you go. You heard it first. That's what to expect from the Kings tomorrow. Anyways, thank you guys so much. Hopefully you guys all have a wonderful evening. We appreciate you all, and we will see you all on Tuesday. But in the meantime, go Kings.